often do we experience prejudice in our day-to-day lives? And more importantly, how many opportunities have we missed or made others miss as a result? For that reason, in order to begin talking about diversity, I think we need to take the opposite approach and start with bias and how biases form. I have a personal anecdote to share in this regard that demonstrates on a very small scale how assumptions about others can influence our actions. One day, I was waiting to interview a young man. He was running late, or so I thought, until a colleague told me he was waiting outside the office. I went outside and didn't see anyone. Just a delivery boy on a skateboard. I came back inside and asked again. My colleague insisted. The young man had sent a message saying he was right outside. I thought maybe he had the wrong address, or that I was meeting the invisible man. So I went back outside once again and asked the delivery guy if he had seen another young man, someone I was expecting for an interview. He said, "Yeah, that's me." In a flash, I understood what had happened. Because he had a skateboard, was wearing a rain poncho, and carrying a box, I assumed he was a delivery guy. Where I used to live in Buenos Aires, this was a safe assumption. Most young men with a skateboard and carrying a box are doing just that. Inside, I was embarrassed. I realized that my assumptions had rendered this young man invisible to me. That was a learning experience for me because it made me take a hard look at my own preconceptions. But more importantly, it allowed me to understand how being more open-minded not only creates more opportunities, but makes us stronger as a company. In this talk, I'm going to explain why. And by the way, that young man totally impressed me. And today he's a star Glover. Think about it a minute. If we're all cut from the same cloth, similar in all aspects that make us individuals, the path the organization follows tends to narrow. This means there is only one type of conversation, one way of reflecting on things, and the responses we come up with all tend to be very similar. The Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie uses a concept I really like when she talks about the danger of a single story. When applied to a technology company, as dynamic, fast-growing, and creative as our own, that can be a serious problem, a contradiction. That's why we have a wider perspective. Being more open when we look, listen, and actively understand contributes to building better companies and societies. And it also makes organizations capable of more flexible, educated, and respectful responses. And that is also what diversity is about. And it's not only respect for individuals, cultures, and ethnicities. It is about knowing diversity makes us better. Now, as individuals, we need to do a little exercise before we can go deeper into this new way of looking at diversity. It is an exercise like what happened to me. Every human being is biased. It starts by making our unconscious biases conscious and understanding other concepts that come to our brains automatically. They are instilled by our culture, society, parents, friends, social circles, and even the companies we work for. Only after we have taken a good look at ourselves can we start hearing other voices, other perspectives, and understanding the value of embracing difference. That's what this exercise is about. Yet diversity is not just a concept. It is above all action. Let's talk a little bit about Globant and how diversity, equity, and inclusion took shape and evolved into its own area. Since its beginnings in 2003, Globant has taken on topics related to diversity. In 2006, we opened an office in Tandil in order to be closer to where the talent was. In 2010, we launched Testear, the first software testing projects to incorporate members of vulnerable communities. A year later, we created our sustainability department, which drafted the first company report that included internal demographic data, inclusion programs, and salary gaps. And starting in 2014, Globant introduced volunteering initiatives like My Cause, which has since continued to evolve. Finally, in 2019, we launched Be Kind, and in 2020, our diversity, inclusion, and equality area. Nowadays, our approach to inclusion rests on 4 pillars that we're continuously reassessing. The first one is gender and sexuality. The second is race, culture, and ethnicity. The third is accessibility. And the fourth is social and economic backgrounds, meaning vulnerable populations. Based on these guiding principles and objectives, we have specific teams working to assess the unique traits of each location, because the issues are not always the same, and each region requires its own approach. Let's take a closer look at our 4 pillars. In terms of gender and sexuality, we launched She Leads, a training so that more women and non-binary members of the organization can access or be better prepared for leadership roles. In order to deal with sensitive and important topics like race, culture, and ethnicity, we seek to be more open-minded in every site where we operate, because we understand we need to build bridges between cultures. Here's one example from when we opened offices in different provinces in Argentina. During our interviews, candidates were stunned to learn that the lunch break was only an hour, because siesta was sacred, and employees were used to going home for lunch and even taking a nap. And it makes sense, because it's too hot at noon to do much else. So this is a kind of cultural thing that we need to be attentive to. We also took measures to make our workplace more accessible in order to incorporate more people with disabilities into the world of technology. And whenever we develop software, accessibility is top of mind.